and welcome everybody back to the Insider Galaxy podcast. I'm your host, Eric Hernandez. As always, we got to talk about our game against LAFC, where we get our first loss of the season, a 2-1 loss at BMO Stadium. You had Julian Alves scoring his first MLS goal. Of course, there was a lot of things to talk about from that game. Of course, some controversy, the way the Galaxy played this game, and just all our thoughts and opinions about this. Of course, El Tráfico always has something to talk about. Maybe not something from the excitement part. Obviously, this was probably one of the boring El Tráficos, you can say, from this weekend. But of course, like I said, we'll give our thoughts, our opinions about the game, everything you want to know from that game, and our opinions. Of course, we got Galaxy news going to talk about, and we also have our preview against the Vancouver Whitecaps, which is going to be another big game coming this week. The first place in the West going up against second place in the West. So another big game to try to bounce back and get ourselves on track, I guess you could say. But yeah, this should be a good episode, good conversation overall. And let's get into it. And of course, with me as always is my co-host, LA Galaxy Central. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. It's been a pretty decent week so far. It's been going by kind of quick. Obviously, it was a very rough weekend. Losing a derby and losing a final in a span of 24 hours definitely is very disappointing. Been a disappointing week for my teams in general, like the Lakers have lost, the Kings have lost. But hey, at least the Champions League was super good yesterday, so that was really good to see. And yeah, I'm happy to be here right now. There's a lot of things to talk about, and I'm ready to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the weekend was just jam-packed with a lot of things, sports-wise and just entertainment-wise as well. I mean, obviously you had El Tráfico, baseball's in full swing again. WrestleMania was this weekend, so that was fun and exciting. I don't know if you're into wrestling, but boy, was WrestleMania good this weekend. It was awesome. But yeah, obviously there was a lot of entertaining things to do. Not only just sports, but obviously, I got to, do some good things over the weekend. I mentioned to you before we recorded, I went to the mountains up on Saturday, and I barely made it on time to watch the game. Like, once we got down the mountain, I got signal. The game had just started, so got to see the game, at least half of the first half on the road. The second half, I managed to get back home and watch that. But overall, entertaining weekend. Of course, a bit of a bummer weekend, considering, like you said, we lost this game. The U17 Galaxy Academy team, they end up losing the final, which, of course, still, though, congrats to them that they made it that far. But it is unfortunate that they lose that, that matchup this weekend. But, of course, a lot of good things this weekend. But of course, we got the game to talk about, so let's just get right into that one. Like I said, the Galaxy end up losing to LAFC 2-1 in this matchup. Like I said, this was a El Tráfico where you can say that it was not the most entertaining El Tráfico. Of course, both sides didn't look as great. And I guess, LAFC managed to get up on top. Again, a set-piece goal, something that the Galaxy continuously just, don't get better at. I don't know how they don't get better at it, or why they just keep scoring on set pieces, and specifically on the corner once again. So obviously that happens. You get the controversial penalty call, which we'll talk about later in a bit. But of course, 2-1, our first loss of the season. I mean, what are your thoughts about the whole game? Is there anything new, I guess you can say, we learned from this Galaxy team now that we finally get our first loss? But what are your overall thoughts about it?
Yeah, there's nothing new I learned from me. And like you said too, and I totally agreed with it, it was probably one of the most boring El Tráficos I've watched in my time being a fan. For me, I was thinking about that too. It's like, it was either this one that was the worst El Tráfico in this short rivalry's history, or it was the October 2021 where we lost 2-0 that might have been the worst one. Either way, it was definitely up there for being the worst one. It was it just wasn't very good. The vibes were not there. It was a 4:30 kickoff on a Saturday, which was just really weird. You didn't feel the involvement from around the league because there were so many teams playing at 4:30, so everyone else from around the country was just watching their own team play, which is very understandable. So you didn't get the audience in. The 4:30 time was weird. The quality of the game wasn't good. The way the game was decided wasn't good. Neither team's performance was that good, so just not a very good game. Not one, honestly, I'm too upset about. Like, I did say this, and I'm going to say it again. Like, if I'm going to be completely honest, I'm more mad that we dropped 2 points against St. Louis. Like, it didn't really bother me that much because we were on the road. It just wasn't, a great game for either team. So it is what it is. But, yeah, definitely a very boring game. Not a lot to look forward to, and not a very memorable one either.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I don't know if anybody would really remember this game other than probably just the call, which, was it could be its own topic. But I mean, in terms of the game, yeah, I mean, really, realistically, this Galaxy team just did not click, and I think it was mainly just offensively, right? I mean, offensively, this we just weren't there. We talked about our DPS, right, going into this game, how all three of them were going to be important into this game, and how that could be the deciding factor whether we won that game or not. And all our three DPs weren't really connecting. Maybe a couple of them had good individual performances, but even then, like collectively as a whole, they didn't look that great. And yeah, I mean, honestly, this was just I don't know. It just wasn't that good of a game. I think it was frustrating because it wasn't that good. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, that's just how I felt. Like, it was frustrating, not in the sense that we were losing or anything like that. I think it was just the fact that it just wasn't good football, man. Like, it really just wasn't good from either side of the team. I mean, you had Denny Bouanga just absolutely just blowing an empty goal, like just, kick the ball into the stands. Like, I don't know how he missed that. And yeah, I mean, and also you had the refs and how they just, took control of the game and really wasn't that consistent either with all the calls and everything. In fact, Greg Vanny just, had enough, had his words about all that with the refs' decisions and everything. And yeah, I mean, honestly, it just wasn't there. I mean, I guess inside the stadium, it was there. Like, obviously, the supporter groups are going to be loud and wild and from both teams and everything. So I guess the atmosphere inside the game and whoever was there probably was it was good, but I think just overall, like like you said, just the overall vibes and the, I guess if you were watching it at home, just it wasn't there. It really wasn't there for this team. But yeah, I mean, honestly though, like, I mean, it was boring in a sense, and the way we lost, I guess, made it even felt a little bit worse just because we got scored on a set piece goal and then the controversial penalty. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't there. It really wasn't there for this game. But yeah, I mean, and let's talk about that the first goal actually that LAFC scored, again, a set piece goal, man. Like, I mean, seriously, how do we not figure it out? Like, how do we not figure it out? How do you leave somebody open, like not covering the back post in that situation? It just doesn't make sense. But yeah, I mean, how do we keep doing this, man? Like, why do we not learn from our mistakes in terms of set pieces?
I don't know, and it's getting very concerning right now. Like, what is this, our sixth or seventh set piece goal? One of those two, right?
I think it's six.
Six? All right, we can just assume it's six. It actually might be seven, but let's just say it's six still. Like, some teams all season long don't even give up 5 set-piece goals. We've given up, let's say, 6, and we're not even at week 10 yet. That is super concerning. And for me, like, it's super concerning because we're past the point where, we're just talking about, like, yeah, we need a wake-up call, we need to switch on. The wake-up call and switching on is when we tied St. Louis 3-3 and gave up 2 set-piece goals. But since that point, when there had to be a real wake-up call, we gave up 2 set-piece goals in Kansas City, and then we gave up a set-piece goal 4 minutes into the game at LAFC, which is another problem. You concede right at halftime in Kansas City, and you concede right at the beginning of the game at LAFC, something that was a big problem last year. You always concede at bad times. That's still a problem this year. And the problem with it is I don't see any solutions, right? I mean, maybe if Sergio Ramos walks through the door come summertime, that could be a good solution. But, right now that's not exactly very realistic at the moment. So, I mean, what do you do? Because, like, here's the problem. Like, our team is really small too. It feels like we're not physical. Even if we do win the first ball, we never win second and third balls on set pieces. And on the other end too, when we take corner kicks, we're not threatening at all. The only guy that I feel like is threatening on set pieces is Maya Yoshida. Like, that's it. He's the only guy that's going to clear a set piece, and he's the only guy that's a threat to head one in. Even Joveljic, like you talked about Miguel Berry being a big guy that can get pushed around a lot. Joveljic, for how big he is, does not use that to his advantage as much as he should have. And we need him to be better in those situations, considering guys like Brugman, Puig, Delgado are not these huge guys that are going to get the ball out. And yeah, playing with no center back, which we'll talk about also, was a massive issue. I think, for bad defending set pieces, McCarthy has to come out a little bit more and just demand the ball from himself because no one else is doing it. And yeah, it's not just a switch on anymore. It's a big problem because we had the wake up call in St. Louis and we conceded 3 since then. So right now, I don't have solutions right now. And honestly, it's going to drop us a lot of points this year if it just continues.
I agree. It's gonna be a big factor this season if we don't find a way to at least minimize it, right? And there was an interesting thing because we were talking about preseason and how Greg Vanny was like, I want to cut half the goals that we scored last year, right? I mean, I think we got scored on 11 times this season already, and 6 of them are set pieces. If you defend better on on set pieces, there's your half right there. You know, it wouldn't, or at least almost your half, because it would be, it's 11, but that's almost your half. Or a little more technically. So it's just like, to me, it's just like that like we talk about that, and it's like, how do we cut goals in half? And there's there's the I guess part of the solution is try to defend better on set pieces. And again, I just don't understand it, and especially just how do you leave Tillman alone like that? Like, how does is nobody there to cover him? Nobody on that back post. It just doesn't make sense to me. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I also, you mentioned about, like, I guess, like, I guess the Galaxy just needs sort of a big man, and I guess, you're right, Yoshida's probably the only big man we really have. I guess you can say Miguel Berry in a sense, but even then, how much of an effect he is, and yeah, you don't really have that tall guy. You don't, and I know I'm not trying to compare, anybody to Zlatan, but Zlatan was at least that big guy that can get you the headers inside the box, right? Whether you're on the offensive side, and he was always there to, how many headers did he score when he was with the Galaxy? So it's like, I don't think the Galaxy really have a big man in those situations, whether it's defending or the offense either. But yeah, I mean, set pieces, it just has to be, better. It just has to be better. I don't know what they do in practice. I'm assuming they have to practice that. I mean, you got to, there's no way that they say, like, okay, like, we're just gonna leave set pieces off our practice. It's like, no, they have. Assuming they do practice that, but it's just like, what do we need? And I guess, yeah, like, one thing is also just having someone with a good amount of size to, like, outbody people, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just didn't. To me, I think in general, just how they set it up was not good at all. Like, I don't think it was just a matter of size or somebody outsizing us. I think it was just a matter of poor positioning, which we've also talked about as well. It's like, we don't really position ourselves well, in a sense. But I don't know. To me, like, set pieces, it's like they've just been killing us this season, man. I mean, they've always been killing us, but now it's just like, a lot of these goals have just been off of that, and we got to fix it somehow, one way or the other.
What's so concerning about these set pieces too is the thing about set pieces is they're very accessible to every single team, whether we're in first place or we're playing the 14th place team, or we're towards the bottom of the table playing a top team. Like, no matter what position we're in, every team has access to set pieces. And we saw of St. Louis, like, this season, they're not off to a great start right now. They came into Dignity Health Sports Park. The Galaxy took the lead twice. They were the better team. They had more of the ball. They created more chances. They found space. But ultimately, they didn't win the game because of set pieces. And you look at it coming up too, like, we play San Jose at home. Like, yeah, coming up right now, they're not a good team right now. But who's to say, like, all you need versus the Galaxy, you don't even have to be the better team playing this way. All you need to do is draw set pieces and win corner kicks. You can find your way to get back into a game. Just look at St. Louis. They weren't the better team when they played us, but they managed to get a result out of our stadium because of set pieces. Set pieces are going to be a massive strength to everybody, and now teams are feeling like they can get a result out of us just because of set pieces, even if they're not the better team on the field. It's going to drop us so many points this season, and you're going to be looking back at it saying, wow, if we defended set pieces better against some of these teams, we really could have had a lot more points, whether that's 3 points, 1 point even. I mean, it's a massive problem, and right now there's really no solutions. I thought the solution was just a wake-up call and more focus, but if that wake-up call and more focus didn't come against St. Louis, I don't know how it didn't come now. And we've conceded 3 since then, so I don't know. It's a massive problem. Our players are kind of small. Yoshida's the only guy getting them out. And even then, we're so bad on second and third balls too. Like, we get other opportunities in the box, so I don't know. Like, you can say limit set pieces, but you can't just not give up corner kicks. That's pretty much impossible. The ball will go off you. It'll take a deflection, so I don't know. I seriously don't know. It's a big problem, and it's going to cost us a lot of points if we don't figure it out soon, actually, not later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you can make the argument of limiting, those corner kicks, because think about it in that game. LAFC had a lot of corner kicks in that beginning of the game, and I think the Galaxy just, hardly had any. So it's like, I think, yes, you can make the argument that you have to find a way to limit those corner kicks, because, and also, let's be honest, it's not like we say set pieces, but in reality, it's just been corner kicks, because I don't think we haven't conceded off a free kick. I mean, I guess you can say a penalty if you want to consider that a set piece, but, that's kind of like a 50-50 situation. Like, it's going to happen. Like, there's a good chance of it happening, but it's just like, it's really just been corner kicks. And and again, I just don't know what that solution is. But like you mentioned, maybe it can be limiting those corner kicks. But again, it's hard to say. Like, it's hard to limit corner kicks because it's just like it's gonna happen no matter what. But I mean, but again, like, do you really want the defense to really be focusing on, hey, let me just not you know, give these guys a corner kick? It's just like, no, it's like they're going to try to find their way to defend the ball, even if that means that they get a corner kick. It's just like, it's hard to do. But I mean, it could be a solution, but I don't know if that's really the solution in terms of that way. But let's talk about another thing that I guess you can consider a set piece, which was the penalty. Again, I think I don't know, that penalty call, man. I mean, this is our fourth season as a podcast. How many times have I gone on here talked about VAR and how shit it is? I mean, it's been at least once a season. let's just say once a season. Yeah, I mean, that was just a terrible call. I don't understand how that happened or how, like, I don't know. It's so shocking that I can't even think right now. But it's just so amazing to me that we have a tool to correct these calls, that you have another set of referees to help you make the correct calls, and then somehow you don't make the correct call. I mean, it just really makes no sense. Like, and it's not like, and again, I get it. Like, it has to be definitive. It has to be obvious. I mean, this was caught in 4K. Like, this was as obvious as it can be. And somehow the ref decided that it was not a penalty when Bouanga flopped and, also created the contact rather than Yamane, which is like, I mean, I don't know. It really is something, I guess. And it is kind of like, kind of makes you wonder why these guys were on strike and why the MLS didn't want to give them a deal in the beginning of the season. But yeah, I mean, once again, VAR stinks. I just don't understand how that call happens and how they don't overturn it. Like, it's just beyond me. And it's not even like a subjective thing. I think whether it was the Fox commentary, whether it was the Apple commentary in English or in Spanish, everybody thought that wasn't a penalty. Every MLS pundit thought that wasn't a penalty. Yet the only people who thought it was a penalty were just LAFC fans and probably Denny Bouanga. So it's just like, I mean, I just don't get how that happens. It's really a joke. I mean, I don't want to say this, and I hate it when people say that this was the reason why we lost. It wasn't. It wasn't the reason why we lost. But damn it, you can't be making these type of calls in these type of games, and it just fucking sucks. Like, I mean, it blows. I mean, it really does, and it's such a joke that it just happened. I just don't even know what to say anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought in week 1 when we saw the Sergio Busquets ghost tackle, I thought it wouldn't get any worse from there. But like, at least to be fair to that referee, a second yellow card isn't reviewable, and it was a replacement ref, so the experience wasn't there. They didn't have the eye they needed to. But these are the pro referees there, and to have VAR to get recommended for a review to look at that and still award a penalty is, honestly, you said it yourself, just shocking, really. And you said it didn't change the outcome of the game, and that's not the reason why we lost. Well, I disagree with you. I do think that is the reason why we lost, because if the game is 1-1, LAFC is not playing like that in the second half. You think at a 1-1, LAFC is going to play parking the bus, sitting back in the second half? Absolutely not. And then if they don't park the bus, then we have more space to do what we want. Then the game opens up, Ricky Pooch gets more involved, the wingers actually have space to do something, and they don't just sit on a 1-goal lead. And they got that 1-goal lead handed to them because of a terrible penalty call that was not overturned and should have never been given in the first place. So if that's the reason why we lost, yes, it's the reason why we lost. Because honestly, was LAFC much more threatening than that? Not really. And if it was 1-1, would they have just played like that and sat back? Not really. So those course of events and that call really led to how the entire game went. Did the Galaxy play great? Not necessarily. We're going to talk about the players that could have done some things better. But that moment absolutely did change the game. It was a terrible call to make, especially at a 1-1. You had the VAR. You didn't overturn it. You got recommended for a review. I mean, Bouanga was already falling down before Yamane even touched the ground, which should tell you a lot in itself. It's a terrible way to end a derby game, honestly, in 1-1, away from home. It's almost like it doesn't hurt because you just feel like, wow, what a shit call. But either way, it's ridiculous, bro. Like, I thought week 1 with Busquets, we wouldn't get worse than that. And I mean, speaking of bad refs, too, you can look at the Champions League yesterday in Tigres. They had something hilarious, too, happen there. So just VAR and refs in North America and England, it's shit. Honestly, it's complete shit. And there's nothing we can do about it. It's the way it is. We have to prepare for it. But Yeah, horrible, horrible call, really. I mean, it is the reason why we lost. I'm not going to be as light as you are. I do think that played a massive influence and was just completely embarrassing.
I mean, the only reason why I say it wasn't necessarily the outcome because, like, who know? I always believe it. I guess, like, I mean, it's more like of a universe type of thing. But it's just like, who knows? What if that they did overturn that call and then LAFC managed some reason to win 3-1? I don't think they would have, but it's just like maybe it would have been worse if they did overturn that call. But that's like kind of like a universe superstition type of thing, right? So that's just how I think. But I mean, still though, in terms of the call, it's just like it's terrible, man. I've always said it. I said it multiple times for many years already. It sucks. I mean, and the fact that I had to argue that all weekend on social media, whether it was on X, whether it was on IG, against LAFC fans, it was just like the worst. And some of those guys are just idiots. Like, I mean, really. I mean, again, and no offense. Actually, a big offense to those LAFC fans who are idiots. But it's just like, still though, like I just don't understand how people think that was a fair call. I mean, hey, and you mentioned Champions League. I'm gonna bring up UEFA Champions League. Yesterday in Arsenal Bayern Munich, in the final moments, the Saka did the same thing. Created contact against Neuer when Neuer was trying to make himself big and try to block that thing, and they said that should have been a penalty, but it wasn't. Why? Because Saka created the contact. So it's the same thing that Denny Bouanga did in a sense. And in fact, worse because Yamane was nowhere near Bouanga to make the contact, I guess. And it's just like, again, I just don't understand how you have the video in front of you. And it wasn't bad video. It wasn't like you had the worst angles. You had clear and obvious evidence. I mean, if you have Taylor Twellman, who is one of the biggest Galaxy haters, some people say. I think Stu Holden's a bigger hater. That's just me. But if you have Taylor Twellman, who in a sense is a Galaxy hater, and he says that it's not a penalty or that it's clear and obvious that it isn't a penalty, then I think and again, I'm not saying the ref should listen to Taylor Twellman, but like it should give you a good indication that it's just like, yeah, like this is not a penalty, like and it shouldn't be. Like if you have two eyes, hell, Stevie Wonder looked at this and probably said that this wasn't a penalty. It's just like, I don't know. It's such a stupid call, and I just don't understand how these guys just keep making these calls like this. And it's not. And listen, it's also not the fact that Denny Bouanga dove. It's not the fact that LAFC got the call. Because at the end of the day, like if this was another team that we were going up against and this exact same play happened, I still would have been just as pissed off. Because it's just a joke. It really is. And also, in a sense, credit to Denny Bouanga for knowing he has that power to know that he's going to get those type of calls in those type of situations too. It's like, I don't blame him for doing that either. So it's just like, I don't know. It's just a bad decision by the refs.
I mean, yeah, he was probably thinking, hey, look, if I play for LAFC or Miami, I can get all those calls. So yeah, he used his power, right? I mean, if that's what he wants to stand on, then he can do that.
Yeah, and it's not just if you play for those big teams. If you're just one of the best players, you're going to get those calls. Like, I mean, in a sense, if you want to say Ricky kind of gets those calls, he kind of gets those calls here and there. I think it's just more like people just try to size him up because he's a smaller player. When Chicharito was here, he knew he had that power. In fact, he knew he had that power so much that he abused it at points to the point where refs weren't going to give him those calls anymore. But point is, it's like regardless, like if you know you have that power, you're going to use it regardless. And I think I can't blame Denny Bouanga for that in a sense. And I think he in his like press conference, he even said like essentially admitting that he dove. So it's like, he knew that he was going to get that call. And again, credit to him for that. But in terms of the refs, it was just such a shitty call. Don't understand how you make that. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing more you can really say about it either.
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't even bother going back and forth with LAFC fans because the entire league and every fan of every single team acknowledged that wasn't a penalty kick. Of course, LAFC fans, one, because they're delusional. Two, like, of course, they're not going to say it's a penalty kick because it's their own team and they're the reason they won and they don't want to get discredited. But everyone's discrediting their win. They're not taking it seriously. Even in the back of their minds, they know it just wasn't a very good performance or something they're really going to beat their chest about or something we're going to be too down about. Like I even said before, and I'll ask you, I was more mad about losing those 2 points against St. St. Louis than I was losing versus LAFC, just because of the context of it and the leads we had, and we were at home, than I was actually losing that game. So if they want it, they can have it. I'm not going to go back and forth with them. I'm just going to worry about what the league thinks and what we think. But yeah, I mean, it was a terrible call. It's the reason we lost the game. It's the reason why LAFC played the way they did in that second half. And we couldn't take advantage of it. We got to live with it. We understand that the refs are terrible in MLS usually. VAR is terrible. It is what it is. You just got to worry about Vancouver now.
That's true. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to move forward, right? Like, I mean, the call happened. It is what it is. The deed is done, I guess you can say. But I mean, I guess it just doesn't mean like you can't be mad about it though. Like, it's still a shit call. But
I'll ask you this though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you more mad about losing those 2 points to St. Louis, or are you more mad about losing El Tráfico? Which one made you kind of more upset or like kind of more down?
I'd still say St. Louis, like, because you're right. Like, I mean, again, this is our first loss of the season. So in reality, it's just like, did this loss and did this win for LAFC mean anything? Like, does this change the trajectory of either team? Probably not. Like, I really don't think so. It's like, you know, we get our first loss. It's a good thing that we lose because now we're humbled. We get back down to earth and we can focus on doing things better, right? So I don't really think that I'm sad about this loss. But yes, in terms of St. Louis, it's like, yes, we tied at home, and you know we got those set piece goals again, and it's just like that. Like, and we've always said, you know, losing points at home is crap. Like, it sucks. So it's like, yes, I think St. Louis was worse because those could have been, you know, that should have been a win for the Galaxy, especially how they played. But because of set pieces, that ended up being a tie. But I mean, in terms of this game though, for El Tráfico and for against LAFC. No, I mean, I'm not really down about it. Again, it's the first loss. It's, you know, and luckily I didn't see any Galaxy fans overreact saying like, oh, this was, you know, like the team is shit or whatever. It's like, no, I don't think this loss really means anything. It's just like, hey, it's just our first loss. It's going to happen regardless of who we play, you know?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If I asked you in preseason, would you take one loss in 7 games? You would have absolutely said yes, right? We would have all taken this right now, especially when you consider our schedule, right? When you saw, you know, Miami week 1 with Messi and Suarez and all those guys, and a rivalry game week 2, and away at Nashville, tough place week 3, and then number 1 seed week 4, and then Sporting Kansas City away week 5, and then Seattle we haven't beaten 11 games week 6, and then away at LAFC week 7. You would have definitely taken one loss in 7 games. Like, that's why I think people feel good about it still. Like, you can still have that level of optimism while also understanding there's things we can grow upon.
Oh yeah, most definitely, and that's a good thing. Yeah, because it's like, you know, I don't. We said this even a couple weeks ago. It's like we didn't expect the Galaxy to be where they're at right now. It's just like we thought that this was going to take time. Maybe, you know, we were going to lose a few games in early on, and then no. I mean, this was our first loss in 7 games. So it's like, yeah. I mean, obviously you shouldn't, like, you know, feel too bad about it. But of course, losing against a rival isn't always good. You know, obviously you always want to win those rivalry games no matter what. But you know, it happens. You're going to lose those games. You're going to tie those games, and you know, it's going to feel like shit, but hey, it is what it is. That's the nature of the sport. But still, though, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't feel too bad about this game, but I think they played very bad in this game. This wasn't one of their best performances of the season, definitely for sure. Which, I mean, I guess we can kind of move on into the players if you want to do that.
I mean, I would add, I don't think they played really bad. Like, they had a ton of the ball. They were trying the right things, trying to make the right plays. It's just that the execution wasn't there. If they played really bad, I think they would have lost the game by a lot more and just failed to look dangerous at any certain points during the game where, yeah, they didn't create clear-cut chances, but the ideas and the movements were there. It was just the execution that wasn't there. So I think saying a really bad game is a little bit harsh, but not a great game, I think, is a little more of a fair analogy.
Yeah, maybe. I guess you're right on that part. I guess, you know, saying they played really bad was a little bit too harsh, but, you know, I don't know.
One more thing, too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, right now is supposed to be the hard part of our schedule, right? Like, we looked at the first February game in March and April, and we still have, you know, the next 3 out of the 4 games on the road, like when we had LAFC. So this is the hard part of our schedule right now. So right now, if we can just grind through and stay afloat, and then, you know, in the summertime and fall time, we get more home games against opponents we've maybe had more success against, I think you can be in a really good position even after this loss. Still, you're still feeling good about it, because right now is the time where we even looked at it and said, this is the hard part of our schedule, so we just got to keep getting through it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, this is still, I mean, and I said it, the first half of the season was going to be hard just because the amount of away games you have in this first half of the season. In fact, I think I think Vancouver, and then we're back home. But the point is, like, there's still a lot of away games to, to be played in this first half of the season. So it's like, yeah, I mean, regardless, this is a tough schedule for the Galaxy. And again, you wouldn't have expected to get, one loss within these first 7 games. I don't think we really ever thought about that going into the season, but hey, here we are. There's still a lot of optimism with the team, but point is, it's just like, any game could have been the next loss, or could have been the first loss, is what I was trying to say. I think we should talk about the players though, because obviously we talked about the calls and things like that, but let's talk about player performances in this game. So let's talk about the defense first. A little change in the defense, and in fact, when I mean little, I mean it's kind of like, in a sense, a big change, because it was kind of a weird like a sub for a player. You had John McCarthy at goal. You had Mickey Amane at right back. Your center backs, this is where the change was Maya Yoshida and Edwin Cerrillo. For those who don't know, Zavaleta apparently during practice got a concussion, so he wasn't available for this game. Of course, Cáceres got he had his little like knock during the Seattle game, so he was available, but they didn't play him in this game. But he was available if they wanted to, but they didn't want to start him. So you had Edwin Cerrillo as your center back, and then you had Julian Aude as your left back. So let's talk about the defense. How'd you feel about the defense, and what were your thoughts about him?
Yeah, so first when I saw Zavaleta was out, the first thing I said was, "You gotta be fucking kidding me." That's exactly what came out of my mouth.
Wait, but before you move on, I was about, when I saw that Zavaleta was out, actually, like the first thing I went into like a group chat that I was in, I was like, I never thought I'd say this, but Eric Zavaleta being out is a huge blow. Like I don't think I don't think anybody would have ever said that at all with Eric Zavaleta, but here we are. We've come full circle. But sorry to interrupt you, but continue.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, it really was a big deal this time. He stepped up the season. We really needed him again, undermanned. And yeah, it just begs the question again. Like, I think the Galaxy really do need Garces to hit, because you look at our center back situation next to Maya Yoshida. You got Cáceres, whose body is kind of worn down, very aggressive player, can get injured a lot coming off a major injury. You have Jalen Neal, where yes, it's good he's back in training, but still probably a ways away, needs to get back on the field, probably with Ventura County, get his fitness up. He couldn't even work out in the offseason because of his injury, so that's a really big problem. And then you got Eric Zavaleta, where yes, the 2-game sample has been good, he stepped up, but realistically, with what we've seen with Zavaleta through his time at the Galaxy, do we really expect him to be a full-time starter at this club? Probably not. So I think it's really important that Garces comes in when he's eventually available with his visa and really just becomes the guy. I think it would be a great balance, like I said, last week, with a young player, an experienced player, a young player, experienced and experience. Having a 2-3 there would be really good. So I think we just need him in general, because like our center back situation next to Yoshida isn't very good. But yeah, having Cedillo at center back was, interesting. I thought Cáceres was going to have to man up and play through the injury and just, give us a hard-ass 90 minutes, and then he can rest maybe a few weeks if his body's that worn down after that game. But, they went with Cedillo. They didn't want to push Cáceres, especially after an injury, which, fair enough, I guess we were very undermanned. So, yeah, but like with the other center back, Yoshida, he had a very poor game too. Like, that was one of those games we needed Yoshida to be good with no center backs on the field, and he was not very good at all. On the corner kick, he just left Tillman wide open, and the commentators were even saying like that was kind of on him. He needed to pick that up. Being a kind of a young backline and an undermanned backline, we need Yoshida to be that leader, making sure everyone's getting on their guys, organizing the backline, and he did not play well that game at all. Julian Aude stepped up. He was very much into the game, obviously scored the goal, which was good. A very interesting goal for sure. But engaged and just in general looked really good. I was very happy with what I saw. Yamane was pretty good as well. And Cedillo, obviously it's not a sustainable situation to put him at center back, but for what we were asking him to do, you just got to give him credit, saying like, hey, it was a difficult situation, undermanned team, did what he could, not a great game, but did what he could, took one for the team, played out of position, so you got to give him that. But overall, it's like the same story, right? The defense from open play isn't bad. Like, we've only given up 5 or 6 goals all year from open play, and the rest have come from corner kicks. So kind of a similar story, right? Which is why I told you at the beginning of this that this game didn't show me anything different that I didn't already know.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to defense, obviously we've said this for multiple weeks now. Run of play, they haven't been bad. And I think overall the defense played well, especially for being undermanned. And Cerrillo didn't play that bad either for what we were asking for. So in a sense, maybe not well, but they played solid, I guess you can say, in this game. John McCarthy had 7 saves, I believe, in this game, and which something we didn't really talk about last week, but going into this game, it was like, how was John McCarthy going to react going back to LAFC, going back to his former team, and especially a team that he won a championship with? How was he going to manage to play in this game? He played very well, made the saves that he needed to do. So John McCarthy, I guess deserves a little shout. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the center backs, I mean, the situation, yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week too. We need Garces to come in here. Hopefully he is going to be, potentially a starter. I know we talked about Jalen Neal last week, and yeah, it's good that we see him back in training. But again, I don't think we should still rush him, which, by the way, we had some comments last week, people telling us that, we were maybe being a little too, not harsh on Jalen Neal, but point is, it's like maybe people didn't think that we were trying to like trash Jalen Neal. Maybe it's like we weren't trying to trash him or anything like that. We were just saying like they should just take his time, because he is still a young player and the potential to, have his ceiling is still pretty high. So it's like, why rush him, right? But point is, like, it's good to see him back in practice. But yeah, I mean, our center back depth isn't really there. And this game obviously showed you why it wasn't there, when considering we had a CDM at center back. Again, didn't play bad, but we can't be relying on Sergio to be, your emergency center back, I guess. But yeah, I mean, in terms of center backs, I mean, they weren't. Bushido probably wasn't the best. Julian Aude definitely stepped up in this game. Obviously got the goal, looked a lot better compared to these last couple of weeks where we said like, hey, like, we were kind of questioning Julian Aude, saying like, hey, he needs to step it up. Definitely stepped it up in this game against LAFC. Looked good defensively and offensively in this game. Mickey Amane was really good in this game. But yeah, I mean, again, like we said, like, it's not the open play. It's not the run of play defending that we're having trouble with. It's the set pieces, and that's where really we got to fix it somehow. Yeah. But anything else you want to say about the defense, or should we move on into the midfield?
Hopefully a center back becomes available soon, because we're going to need one.
Yeah, definitely. Another interesting thing, though, Garces, like, once we announced that he was coming over here on loan, he still played one more game with Deportivo Pereira, which was interesting. Like, I didn't think that they would let him play one more game before he came in, but I guess that's what they did. But hopefully he's here soon, because yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to need that center back depth, and even with bringing him in, don't you think you should probably even look for another center back even after that, or should we just
Sergio Ramos? That's who we should get. He's available.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, that there's some rumors, there's some, people saying that he might be interested in making a move here. So who knows? I mean, I would like Sergio Ramos to be here, even at his age. I think he's still a great defender. So I mean, I would like him here, definitely, for sure. But I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens there. But let's talk about the midfield. Let's talk about the midfield now. Of course,
I have one more thing to add, though.
Oh, go ahead.
I could just imagine Sergio Ramos screaming at everybody when they land those corner kick goals. Like, he'd get so fucking mad. Like, I can just imagine the absolute scenes that would be. Or like, imagine him and Cáceres in the same back line too. Like, the opposing striker would get their ass beat all game. Like, it would be bruises everywhere. Like, that's how aggressive they are.
Yeah, two physical center backs. I mean, yeah, that's not gonna be good. That's not good for
I need to see that.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Like I said, I wouldn't mind having Sergio Ramos on the Galaxy. I think that would be a good pickup. But who knows? Who knows if that's on Will Kuntz's radar? But we'll see.
Got Chiellini.
But yeah, he got Chiellini. So who knows? But anyways, well, let's go into the midfield now. You had Gaston Brugman, you had Mark Delgado, and you had Ricky Puig, which was also a player in, I guess, a topic of conversation after this game. I mean, I saw a lot of people saying like, hey, is Ricky even good? Are we kind of overhyping him? Is Ricky even this fantastic player that we've been saying he is? Like, how, like, a lot of people were questioning Ricky Puig this weekend, and like, I thought that was kind of interesting. But anyway, regardless, like, I mean, overall with the midfield, how'd you feel about it? What were your thoughts about it?
I mean, I don't think it went that far with Ricky Puig, right? Like, people acknowledged he didn't play very well and he needed to connect more passes, but I don't think they'd go as far as saying, like, oh, is he good? Like, come on.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. I saw a couple people. In fact, my brother my brother didn't say, like, is he good? But my brother, when we were watching the game, he was like, hey, do you think Ricky is good enough to go back to Europe? And I think that was just like a good question of topic of conversation. But I saw some people saying like, "Hey, we got to have that conversation with Ricky." But I don't know. I don't know. I think it's a little overboard. But anyways, my bad. Continue with your analysis.
Yeah, a little too early for that right now. But yeah, the midfield, like when we talk about the offense, I'm gonna connect the midfield completely with the offense too. So I'll just start with the midfield. It was fine. Like it was just okay. I mean, nothing other than that. Not too good. Not too bad. They had some good ideas, but then when it was time to connect with the offense, it just wasn't there at all. And part of it, I think, was Greg Vanney. Part of it, I think, was the way LAFC played and the way they sat back. But midfield, I mean, gets a solid C grade, I guess. Just it was fine. It wasn't too good, too bad. It was there. Probably was a little better than LAFC's midfield, but I don't know. It just wasn't. It was kind of neutral that game. It didn't really swing the outcome one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, yeah, the midfield was okay, I guess. I mean, I think again, Ricky Puig was probably the topic of conversation. Again, I wouldn't go as far as saying, like, is he good or, like, questioning his skill level, because I still think he's a great player. I still think whenever you look at the things he's done, you realize, oh, that's why we paid him this much money. That's why he's a DP. It's like, yeah, like, he deserves that. He deserves that. So I wouldn't go far as questioning Ricky Puig, but I will say
we had Cabral as a DP. I don't want to hear about complaining about DPs right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've had worse DPs, I guess, but regardless, it's just like, with Ricky, I will say this: it wasn't his best game. I think there was a lot of moments where Ricky was playing hero ball, which is a lot of people also mentioned as well. Which I guess you did kind of see that, but yeah, I mean, Ricky Puig just was kind of playing a lot of hero ball in this game, and I think, yeah, I would agree with that. Like, Ricky just was trying to do a little too much, and in a sense, it's just kind of like, well, like, I get it. Ricky has had a lot of moments where he's played hero ball, and he's been successful with it. But at the same time, it's like, you have good players around you now. It's not like last year where you had to, completely carry the team. Like, obviously, when you saw the connection with Paintstill and Peck, like, when all those three combined, like, they can do great things. And I think Ricky kind of, like, tried not to use Paint. There was moments where he didn't send the ball to Paintstill when Paintstill was making good runs, which, by the way, I think LAFC also just made was defending, Paintstill very well, considering how dangerous he can be. But there was some moments where Paintstill was making the good run. Ricky didn't go his way. And then I think that's where Ricky just kind of, messed up in a sense. And also the turnovers. I've always said that he kind of turns over the ball a little too much. But in a sense, it's like, yeah, I mean, I think he didn't have the best of games when we needed him to play at his best. But you know what? That's just I guess the nature of the game. You're going to have you're not going to have those games. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the midfield, it wasn't that great. Or, I mean, it wasn't good, but it wasn't terrible. But, obviously, it was just like kind of in the middle. But overall, the midfield was just kind of a C, I guess, like you said. But let's talk about the offense now. Of course, in the offense, you had your front three. You had Joseph Paintstill, you had Dejan Joveljic, and you had Gabriel Peck in this offense. Again, and I think offensively in this game, we weren't necessarily all there. We didn't have the good spots. We didn't look that dangerous in this game, and really just didn't have much of the chances either. But how'd you feel about the offense in this game, and what were your thoughts about it?
Okay, so let's make it a front six thing, because ultimately the game is a team sport, and the midfield and offense kind of do rely on each other to be a successful team going forward and in the moment. So you kind of look at it, and my problem with the Galaxy right now is it's a lot of just ISO ball right now. Like, this is what I've kind of noticed. It feels like, okay, we have the ball in the back. We get it to Brugman. Brugman plays it either to Delgado or Puig. They get on the ball. They play it out wide to Gabriel Peck or Joseph Paintstill, and then it's like, now what? Like, now what happens? Against certain style of plays, we really do struggle offensively. That's what I kind of noticed in that LAFC game. We'd have the ball through Brugman, it would get to Puig, it would go to Gabriel Peck, and then he would be one-on-one or sometimes one-on-two with a guy kind of covering for the one-on-one, and then it would be like, now what do we do? Do we get a ball in the box? And that wasn't going to work because Joveljic was covered by like two guys in the back, which was kind of the reason why LAFC played that defensive way. They wanted to get out with 3 points, which goes back to my other point why I didn't like the call, because if it was 1-1, they wouldn't have played that way. But then, the call was up against us. We had to sort of try to find a way to break that down, and it was just very isolated. Like, I felt like Joseph Paintstill was isolated. He was taking off Hollingshead one-on-one. That didn't go very well. The Peck was trying to take on Palencia. That didn't go on very well. And just overall, just very isolated. Like, it would kind of just be that same pattern over and over again, where it was like Brugman, Pooch, Painstill, Peck, isolated, just one-on-one, nothing happens, restart the whole thing again. And then get into Jovic. Jovic has to beat like 3 guys. He's not going to do that. It was just very isolated. And like against certain playing styles, it can work. Like against San Jose, where they don't mark very well, like it can work. Or against St. Louis, where they're so reliant on high pressing, where just over the top, there's so much space in behind, it can work. You score 3 goals against San Jose, 3 goals against St. Louis. You have a 20-minute dominance against Kansas City, but against teams like Seattle or LAFC that are much more prioritizing defensively and, play a more defensive style of play and actually, are better teams defensively in the league than most other teams are, like those teams. You have to find different ways to make it work. And I feel like Greg Vanney let us down. The players kind of let us down in that area where we just couldn't do anything. It was kind of just rinse and repeat the same thing over and over again. So I'm not even going to make it about just the offense. It was a front 6 thing that just did not work out very well. The midfield wasn't supplying the offense, and it was predictable. And with the low block and parking the bus, it's hard to break down. It really is not easy at all. It's not easy to stop. It's not easy to score on.
Yeah, which actually is something I did kind of forget to mention with the Ricky Puig when I was talking about Ricky Puig, which was I don't think they really played through the middle as much, which I think in a sense like LAFC didn't really allow us to play through the middle. But I think, there's a lot of moments where we can do something when we play through the middle. And I think that was also another thing too, because, we're kind of figuring out how to play out wide, especially now with the additions of Painstill and Peck, right? So, we're still trying to figure out how to play a little better out wide. But they didn't go with what they used to do, which was play through the middle. And I think that's also kind of what affected us through a sense, which I agree with. Like you said, it went through the midfield, then it would either go to the sides, and then after that, like, what do we do? Like, we don't really do much. So it's like, again, do we cross it? It's like, no, because Dejan is getting covered the whole time. Or do we just shoot it? No, we don't have the right angle to shoot it either. And so it's just like, yeah, I think another a way to say it was that we just didn't play much through the middle either. Like, I think that also affected us as well. Like, if there was moments to play through the middle, I think we probably would have been better. But even then, it was very hard to play through the middle. I think that's also another thing why Ricky played a lot of hero ball, was he was just trying to find that space to just get it through the center of the field. Like, and I don't think we found it either.
So here's my thing, though, and the key word is balance here, right? Like, that's why we brought in 2 DP wingers last year, because you don't want to be over-reliant on playing through the middle, and you don't want to be over-reliant now on playing through out wide. And I just felt like this game we played out wide way too much more than we should have. We should have tried to use the middle a little bit more. Even if it was difficult, it was still definitely doable, and that's why, we need a balance in this team, and that's why you got those 2 DP wingers. You spent a lot of money on them, because this Galaxy team is supposed to be more dynamic, more balanced, more well put together, which, I'm going to be fair to them. It's early in the season. They're still learning each other. They're still learning how to play. They're still learning what's best for them. They're still learning different playing styles. Like, they're playing against different opponents. Like, maybe we can play against the San Jose and St. Louis and say, like, yeah, the way we want to play, it works against these guys. But then you look at Seattle and LAFC, where our offense was super dry for over the course of 90 plus minutes in both games. And you would say, like, okay, now we got to learn. Next time we play them, we got to change it up. So it's a learning process. It's going to take time, but definitely balanced. Like, that's why we brought in the DP wingers, because last year we didn't really have the wingers. Like, we had Costa. Pretty bad a lot of the season, became better towards the summertime. Then we had Memo, Alvarez, Boyd, which I guess Boyd had a resurgence, but not the level that we have right now with Painstill, Peck, and Perez, Fagundes. It's a lot better right now, or at least you should think it should be. So just finding more balance. We got to play through the middle sometimes. We got to play out wide sometimes. And coming against Vancouver, which we're going to get into very soon, I think, playing that style of play, maybe out wide, is going to be super important for us. So we got to find what matchups work against what opponents.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it is about trying to find what suits better when you go up against performance, right? Like, you always got to find a game plan. And I think that, yeah, sure, if they wanted to play out wide in this game, that was their game plan. Okay, fine. But but at some point, if your game plan's not working, you got to change it up a little bit. And I think that's where the Galaxy struggle, because once they tried to play through the middle, or it just wasn't going to work either, because the LAFC was already bunkered down. They were just trying to grind out the game until, the whistle blew, which that's exactly what they did. But yeah, at the end of the day, you got to find the balance. You got to play through the middle. You got to play through the sides. And, I guess in fairness, maybe there wasn't the best runs either through the middle. Maybe Jovic just wasn't, in the right spots either to play through the middle, which I guess you could say as well. But Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think just sticking with one side of the field. Well, I mean, I guess both sides of the field, but going in one direction the entire game just isn't going to cut it. Like you got to find different ways to do it, but they didn't really do it in this game. Another question I was actually going to ask because I saw quite a bit of people kind of say this, but like, do you think Greg Vandy kind of got outcoached in this game? I mean, personally, I don't think he got outcoached in this game, but there was quite a bit of people who said that he got outcoached, but I don't think he did.
No, because we lost the game because of a penalty kick, which allowed LAFC to park the bus. And then when LAFC parks the bus, it makes it a lot more difficult to score on them. So I can't really put that on coaching.
Yeah, I really can't put it. I mean, also a lot of people were kind of mad about the subs, how we didn't really, use them as early. But I mean, I will say, before you go, but like I will say about the subs though, it's like, yeah, we put our subs in very late, but Steve Cherundolo also didn't put subs early on either. Like it was like what, the 75th minute, 77, and neither team had made a sub. So it's like neither coaches made the subs early on or did the right or changed the teams like one earlier than the other. But it was just kind of like, I don't know, like I don't really think if this was a coaching thing either. But I did see quite a few people say Vandy got out coached, but I don't think he did. Like I think it was more of a team performance thing than it was on coaching.
No, I will say Fagundes should have came on a lot sooner. Even the commentators were calling for it, and I completely agreed. We needed Fagundes to try to come on. He can create a moment, create an assist. We've seen that in the past. So I think this game with a low block that LAFC was playing, Fagundes could have been really useful. And subbing on Miguel Berry just wasn't good. Like, you even saw one play where, the offense was super dry a lot of the game, but you saw Ricky Puig and Joseph Paintsel have a connection play. Joseph Paintsel was, I wouldn't say in on goal, but had a good chance to get a shot off. And then, Miguel Berry just runs into Joseph Paintsel and he can't even get a shot off, and they're both looking at each other like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? And Miguel Berry, again, it's just like, his positioning is so bad. You said it in the Seattle game, almost like a headless chicken, doesn't know where he needs to be. And yeah, he was just in the way sometimes. He was not very impactful either. Again, got pushed around a lot, was not in the right spots. We brought him on to, create more space on the field to help Joveljic out. Didn't really do that. And I even saw a Galaxy fan post a meme that like they really miss Billy Sharp right now because he could have been good in one of these moments coming on, or really good as a backup too. And I can't help but disagree. Miguel Berry, it was not a very impactful sub, and I think kind of, if anything, hurt us when it should have been a beneficial thing to bring on a striker in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. Like it was just, for Fagundes though, it's just like, yeah, that was probably the only one where I was just like, yeah, why didn't we get him sooner? Because I think he even came on like almost like at the end of regulation. So it was just like kind of, or like very, like I think it was like what, like 85th minute if I'm trying to recall.
About that, yeah.
Like it was very late in the game. I don't know why they didn't put him in sooner. But yeah, that was probably the only question mark I'd have on the subs. And yeah, I mean Miguel Berry just wasn't. I don't think he was really going to have much of an effect on that game either. I don't know. It's just it just wasn't there. We've kind of talked about him a lot this season, but the subs didn't really do much. I'm trying to think who else went in. I don't even think we made that many subs in this game.
I don't think we made another one. No, I don't recall one at least.
Yeah, I don't recall because
we were pretty thin anyways, so.
Yeah, because I was going to say, Auda came out for Miguel Berry, so I know that's what happened. And then, Fagundes came in for one of the wingers, I believe. Or no, I think Fagundes came in for Brooklyn, right? Yeah,
I believe
so. It wasn't even one of the wingers, so it's like, yeah, I don't recall another sub, to be honest. But still, though, I mean, in terms of, I guess, back to coaching, like, I don't think this was a coaching thing. It was just more of a team performance, and we just, and also the calls in the game, like, it just wasn't there for us.
I'll say one more thing about the calls, though. The amount of time it took for LAFC to get a yellow card was ridiculous, too. And the penalty on Maya Yoshida, too. Like, if they're going to call that soft-ass dive, if you want to be the ref and, make the game fair and not have people complain about you, give the Galaxy the soft call, too, in the box. Like, come on. And especially with how long it took them to get a yellow card, too. Like, they had so many fouls. And it took them, like, their, 9th or 10th foul to get a yellow card. I'm like, at that point, like, look. If it's going to take us to get our first loss when we're on the road, we get a bullshit penalty. We're playing with one center back on the field, and it took him 10 fouls to get a yellow card, well then so be it. We got a loss. Okay. In that context, I can live with it. And it's on the road too.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the ref was, I guess you can say was a little more favorable to LAFC in a sense, which, yeah, I mean, obviously, again, bad reffing, and again we said this in the beginning, it's like these are the pro refs now, it's not the replacement refs anymore.
I couldn't tell.
And you couldn't tell if that was the case, but still though, it's just like, Yeah, I mean, there's always just going to be one of those refs that just don't have a good, consistent call, like game calling, I guess. But it's just like, yeah, I mean, in a game like this where I don't know if he was the best available ref choice either. It's not like I know all the refs and who's the best refs, but it's like for this game, you got to send your best refereeing, your best crew, right? And I don't think they really did send the best crew in this game, and you can tell with that VAR call. I mean, it just wasn't. It just the refs just weren't good in this game. That just put it that way.
Not at all.
Yeah, but anyways, any other thoughts you want to talk about the game before we move on, or you got one more thing to say?
Just, not a very memorable El Tráfico either. Like I said at the beginning, one of the more boring El Tráficos we've had, one of the worst ones. Not happy with the way it ended, not happy we couldn't at least get a point from that game, but it is what it is. It's on the road. At the end of the day, you're not going to say an away loss at LAFC is going to be like a season-changing result or one we look back on and say like, yeah, that just can't happen. So, you just got to take it for what it is and move forward with it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You got to move on from it. Again, rivalry losses are a thing in the sport. That's just the nature of the game, and it is what it is. So, like, I mean, yeah, it sucks the way we lost, but at the same time, it's not season ending. It's not world ending either. It is nice, I guess, to get humbled a little bit. Or at least
get exactly.
I mean, not humbled, because I don't think this was like LAFC outplaying us, right? Like, obviously they didn't play that good.
4-5-0, I'd be like, okay, yeah, we got brought down to earth.
That's
but for a
humbled.
1-goal game with that, but like, I don't know.
But still, though, it just gives you a little bit of a reality check, saying like, hey, we still got to fix some things too.
For me, what it tells me is that, hey, now we got a loss because we couldn't defend set pieces. Like before, we were getting ties, not defending these set pieces. Now we're getting a loss not defending these. So I think that should be an even bigger wake-up call if the tie at St. Louis wasn't one. So I think it's more of that rather than actually like getting put in our place.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so, but still though, I mean, it's a little bit of a reality check, I guess you can say. Not a complete one, it's but I think in terms of the set pieces, and yeah, like this is our first loss because of it. Yeah, then that's I guess you could say the reality check.
That's the big thing about it.
Yeah, definitely for sure, and shit refereeing. That's also the big thing about it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it is what it is. We move forward. We get to see them on July 4th at the Rose Bowl, which is a much bigger game, and going to be more of an electric atmosphere in that game. So, and in the middle of the season where it's going to even be more important. So I think that's a game where we'll definitely be judging more rather than this game, definitely for sure. Yeah, so we'll meet them there on July 4th. So yeah, that is the game. Before we do move on into, obviously a little bit of Galaxy news as well as our preview, which, by the way, I forgot to say this in the beginning of the episode, we do have a guest coming on for the Vancouver preview. So, before he comes on and stuff like that, I did want to mention one thing that happened during, after the game, I guess, or I don't know if this is during or after, but point is, Joseph Payne still did get some racist remarks on social media. There was one specifically that he posted on his story. I don't know if there was any more of that or not, but point is, he did get some racist remarks thrown at him, and of course the Galaxy and others stand by him. We do as well, a part of Insider Galaxy and LA Galaxy Central. We do stand with Joseph Payne still, because at the end of the day, banter is banter. That's one thing, but once you throw out the racist remarks or the homophobic remarks or anything like that, that's where it's just like, that's where you cross the line, and you gotta gotta check up on somebody and say like, hey, that's not good whatsoever. So of course we stand with Joseph Payne still on that whole situation, which again, I mean, there's no need to bring in the race stuff, right? Like there's just the again, banter is one thing, but being a dick is a completely different thing as well. So of course, I don't know if you have anything to say about the whole racist remarks about against Payne still, but of course we do stand by with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like you said, it's completely unacceptable. There is banter, but that's crossing a line, definitely. No player should have to do that at any age level. Obviously this weekend, just in general, it's been a big topic. Like with the GA Cup, the Red Bulls had to pull out because international players were just picking on some of their players in a sense and throwing out racial remarks, which is completely unacceptable. MLS needs to do a good job. The clubs need to do a good job of addressing that, not letting it be a part of our league or any league really around the world. So I hope it doesn't happen again. I hope Joseph Pencil, can move on from it, can understand like, yeah, it's not acceptable at all. We all stand with him, and hopefully we can just move forward with that.
And not only just like within league, within the leagues around the world. I mean, just in general in society, right? Like it's not good to be doing stuff like that. Like at the end of the day, it's just like, yeah, it's not a good thing to do. I mean, obviously, I will say, I have seen, I guess, within our youth or whatever, there is this like trend that where kids or teenagers thinks it's okay to make those racist remarks or that it's funny and edgy. In reality, it's not. Like, it really isn't. Like, what do you gain from that other than a chuckle? And it's not even funny, right? So it's just like, I mean, at some point, it's bigger than just a sport. It's in society. You gotta make people understand that it's not the right thing to do. And if you think it's funny, and if you think that it's okay to be doing that, and I think, in all honesty, just, go touch grass, because like it really isn't a good thing to do. So, but in terms of Joseph, and in this situation, we stand by him, and of course also the New York Red Bulls and their academy, because that's also another thing that happened this weekend, which again, not cool, considering that happened to them. So we stand by with them as well, in terms of the racist remarks. But that happened after the game. But let's talk about a little bit of Galaxy news before I guess we move on. Not really much Galaxy news. Of course, we did talk about the GA Cup. The Galaxy, unfortunately lost in the final, the U17. They lost in that final. Not the best thing. Ventura County right now, or G2, what was now known as G2. They are on top of the West, so there's some stuff regarding outside, in the lower ranks of the Galaxy, but I mean, at least a good showing in those areas, right? I mean, it's good to see that our second team is, on top of the West, and then at least, our academy is competing in some of the biggest tournaments, out there.
Yeah, I don't know why you said not much Galaxy news, because in reality, those two things are a massive deal. The LA Galaxy Academy going to the GA Cup is a massive deal. The final, really big deal. Very unfortunate they lost it too. Like, I watched the game against San Jose where they thrashed them 3-0, and I watched the Cup final where they tied 2-2. And the Cup final was honestly unbelievable. Both teams wanted it so much. The Galaxy struggled early. They went down 1-0, and then they went into halftime, which was much needed. They regrouped at halftime. Then, like 5 or 6 minutes later, the game completely turns on its head. They scored 2 goals to go up 2-1. You look at how good the Galaxy Academy has been. Do you say, like, is this the moment they pull away? But then Philadelphia stays in it. They find an equalizer. They have 10 minutes of stoppage time, which is really strange. Extra time, actually, which is really strange at that level. Their extra times are only 10 minutes long, which is just very odd. It felt like it went by so quickly. But then the extra time went away. Then they had penalties, and honestly, it was a really good game. The Galaxy made the first save in the penalty kicks. You thought they were going to win it there. And then, they missed 2 penalties. They ultimately lose the final, but still a great showing. They gave it everything they had. Just fell a little bit short in the penalty kicks. And Ventura County being first place in the Western Conference right now, still early on, but when you saw Ventura County last year, also known as LA Galaxy 2, they were losing every game like 5-0, 6-0, 4-0. I mean, we even talked about it when we never talked about LA Galaxy 2, how bad it got for them, and we said it had to improve, and this season they're definitely a lot better. They made a lot of really good additions, like they brought in Brady Scott from the Columbus Crew, who's been good. They brought in Tucker Lepley from the draft, who's been a good piece for them. They got Perez and VB being full-time members, which they look good for them. Obviously, you got Bibu still from last season. He was a double-digit goal scorer, so that team looks really good right now. Hopefully, they can be able to improve because they're showing a lot of really good signs right now.
Yeah, and you know what? I kind of did disrespect a little bit about those two, right? Because it's like, I just said like, deal. Oh yeah, not really. Yeah, I was gonna say, I just kind of brushed it off like it was just some little news, but no, it is a big deal. So my apologies for that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the academy, like, and think about it last year, because when the U17 won the MLS Next tournament, right? A lot of, there were some MLS, people out there saying like, oh, this probably is a fluke. This is not a sign that the Galaxy Academy is changing, or they're not getting better or anything like that. But look, they just got into a final of another tournament against a good academy, because Philadelphia Union has one of the best academies in the country. So it's like they went up into the final against a good academy, went through it, till the end, down to the wire. And unfortunately they lost, but they still made it there. So it's like, to those people who thought that, that them winning last year was just like a fluke or whatever, it's like, it's not. Like, clearly you can see like they're getting better. The academy is looking better. And then in terms of Ventura County, like you said, they were just, they weren't great last year, just getting murdered every single week. And now they're on top of the Western Conference, which is like a good change in direction. And like I said, and I think I said this when we talked about, G2 and the academy like a couple weeks ago, the stain that like Chris Klein had on this organization, like it really just went down through the whole pyramid, through all levels. And then now that he's gone, look what's happening, right now the main team, second in the West, and could possibly take first again, depending, the result this weekend. And also in the conversation for Supporter Shield, you got Ventura County on top of the West, and now you have the academies competing in these big tournaments and doing well in these big tournaments. So it's like really just the whole change of direction ever since Chris Klein got fired has just been dramatic and drastic for the club and the organization. So it's a good thing to see overall. And of course, for those, of course, congrats, I guess, in a sense, to the academy for going that far. Again, like, it's unfortunate that they lost, but it's still a great showing and still a great representation. And for Ventura County, like, keep it up. Like, we want to see, we want to see more, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, the LA Galaxy Academy knocked off River Plate in the GA Cup, which is such a massive deal. That was a massive upset. Just a few years ago, River Plate brought Enzo Fernandez and Julian Alvarez to this tournament. And River Plate is known to produce like many world-class players all around the world and through their academy. So that was a massive deal and a massive achievement they can hang their hat on just by that alone.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, I mean, still, like, yeah, beating River Plate, like, they're one of those teams that just produce players and good players, right? Like, so it's just like, beating a club like River Plate is always going to be good. And it is a big upset too. So, like, again, it's a good showing for the academy, and definitely the direction that they're going in is fantastic, and it's great. And definitely they deserve their flowers, for representing the Galaxy well, definitely. But anyways, any other points you want to talk about? Galaxy news? Anything else you want to say?
No, hopefully the Academy and G2 keep going on the upper, also known as Ventura County. Hopefully we keep seeing that really good resurgence from them.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, hopefully they keep continuing for that one. Which, by the way, like I mentioned before, we got to get Crystal back on here because she is that G2 or now Ventura County, girl. In fact, it's funny because she says, like, she refuses to call it Ventura County. She's like, no, they're still G2 to me. It's like, well, they're Ventura County. It's like, no, it's like they're G2. It's like, all right, then, whatever you say. But, obviously she's big on them and watches them very often. So, but, we got to have her back on just to talk about that soon. But anyways, now we're here to talk about the Vancouver preview. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, we do have a guest. We have Alex Rickman here with us, who is a Vancouver fan, and here to talk about, of course, the Vancouver Whitecaps, and because that is our next matchup, a very important and going to be a tough matchup this weekend for both sides because it is the first and second place of the West going up against each other. So, of course, Alex, how are you doing, man? How's your day been?
Doing pretty good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
I mean, yeah, definitely, for sure. We're glad that you're here, to talk about the Whitecaps. And, I mean, let's get right into it. Of course, we have the LA Galaxy versus Vancouver Whitecaps this Saturday at Vancouver. And I also mentioned that this is going to be a very tough matchup, considering it's the first and second place teams of the West going up against each other in this game. Of course, yeah. I mean, just in general, before we go into the match, Vancouver right now are playing very good. They're first in the West. I think they've also only had one loss on the season. I mean, Alex, how do you feel about your Vancouver Whitecaps and how they've been performing so far early on in the season?
I'd say pleasantly surprised more than anything. I think going into this year, I was viewing the Whitecaps as a team who would be almost certain for a playoff spot, but I never viewed us as one of the top teams in the West. I'm still not fully convinced their pace is sustainable right now, but it's been great to watch so far. Experiencing all but one home game too in the stadium has just been great.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, I mean, hey, for us, like, we were just actually talking about it earlier. Like, for the Galaxy, like, we didn't expect to have, in our first 7 games only one loss in the season. We were expecting that this was going to be, kind of like a, we were going to get a few losses here and there. It's going to take time to build up. But yeah, I mean, definitely for sure. It's like, even for us, it's kind of been a little bit of surprise that we've been playing this good. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's been good to see, like the Galaxy play that well. And it is kind of like from an outside perspective, it is kind of interesting to see Vancouver play that well. I know you guys, I believe, won the Canadian Cup. I believe, was it last year, right?
Back to back, yeah.
Oh, back to back. So it's like you guys have had successful domestically, and then now just you guys having success in the MLS, this season, at least for now, and it should be an interesting matchup going up against this Saturday. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll start off with you. What are your thoughts about going up against the LA Galaxy this weekend? How do you feel your team is going to go against us?
Yeah, this one I'm really looking forward to. This probably our toughest challenge so far. A lot of our wins have come against not necessarily the best competition. Teams like, Portland is having a really rough start to the season. Toronto, I'm not especially convinced by. So this will be a good challenge for us. I think it'll be really indicative of what the rest of the season could look like for the Whitecaps. I think if we can go up against a team in great form like the Galaxy and put in a solid 90 minutes and get a result, that'll say a lot about what kind of a team we really are.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Of course, LA Galaxy Central, through our perspective, through the Galaxy, obviously we just came off a loss, but how do you feel like going up against Vancouver this weekend? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, the matchup says it's for itself. It's a 1-2 matchup. Early season still, but still like an early indication of what both teams want to be. Both teams want to have a really good competitive season. And yeah, this is the first time the Galaxy picked up a loss. It's going to be interesting to see what response we have. Under Greg Vanney our entire time, every time we've picked up a loss, we've always been kind of sort of bad a couple of games after. So I'm hoping if this team's really a different team from those past seasons, especially last season, we can see some sort of immediate response, which would be really good. But yeah, obviously it's a very difficult opponent. We haven't beaten Vancouver in 4 games. I think they just match up well versus us. Like, it's one of those teams where, you know, the formation they've played and the way they've kind of bothered our best players like Ricky Puig. You know, when we had Chicharito, he didn't play very well versus them a lot. It's a team that gives us a lot of trouble. It's a team we're going to have to be ready to play against. And one thing more important than anything, I think it's going to be a game where Joseph Panstil and Gabriel Peck really have to have a really good game, because Alex, you can tell me otherwise, but when I look at Vancouver, I think their biggest weakness right now is their fullbacks. So right now, the Galaxy spent just around $20 million on their wingers right now. So I think the Galaxy really have to try to find those fullbacks, target those fullbacks right now. Obviously, Vancouver's still in the market for a fullback, knowing they need to upgrade, but if the Galaxy can really attack those Vancouver fullbacks, give him a lot of trouble, and like Joseph Panstil plays like he did versus San Jose or St. Louis, I think we could give Vancouver some trouble, because, you know, as good as Vancouver is so far, I have seen in the past at home they can be kind of up and down. And what I've seen with Vancouver is every time they pick up a couple of good results in a row, they're usually kind of due for a let-off. Like you see Vancouver, they beat Portland, they beat Toronto. Now it feels like they're kind of due for sort of a let-off. So if we take advantage of that and go into their environment, I think we have a chance at a tie at least, maybe possibly a win if we really do things well. But yeah, for sure it's going to be a difficult game for both sides, really.
Yeah, like you were saying about the fullbacks, having Sam Adekubi back should be quite helpful for us, but overall it's certainly not a position of strength for us. We've had to use guys like Ryan Raposo has been relied on quite a bit, who's inconsistent at the best of times. We've been using Alessandro Schopf out of position there, which, if you told me about this last year, I would have lost my head hearing about that, but it's actually gone surprisingly well so far, but you got to question the sustainability of that with how rocky his tenure in Vancouver's been. I would like to see a player like Ali Ahmed get used on the wing. His speed, his ability with both feet, I think could really be quite valuable, but like you said, attacking the wings would probably be Galaxy's best hope at getting the result against Vancouver.
All right, so another thing that I would say is I feel like in terms of Ricky Puig, like obviously he's a special player in this league. Yeah, has been a little bit of up and down coming off a down game this season, but still a special player in this league. I feel like every time he's gone against Vancouver, it's kind of been one of those teams I can look at and say he's really struggled against them. And I think a big credit has to go to Andres Cubas. I do think he's one of the best center defensive midfielders in this league. He's a very smart player, very good ball winner, you know, stays attached to his man very well. And I just feel like for this game, like sometimes we use Ricky Puig really well and he's a big part of our team, but I just feel like this game, we can't rely on him as much as we normally try to do, because Andres Cubas is going to be all over him. And I just feel like, you know, either Greg Vanney as the coach, he's responsible for getting him in different positions, maybe trying to get him away from Andres Cubas, maybe trying to get Brugman a little more attached to Cubas to get him away from him. I don't know the solution. I mean, I'm not the coach of the team right now. I mean, who knows what will happen in the future? Anything's possible, but
give it a minute.
Yeah, I just feel, give it a minute, right? I mean, who knows what could happen, but yeah, I just feel like we need to find ways to, you know, use the wings, get Ricky Puig involved, but part of that getting him involved is getting him away from Andres Cubas, and I'm sure you could tell me about how special of a defensive midfielder he really is for Vancouver.
Yeah, Cubas has just been revolutionary since he showed up in our team. I remember last year I went on an away trip to Seattle at the end of the season with Vancouver Albion, a supporter group I'm a member of. Shout out to them. Cubas didn't start that game; he was hurt, so we had Sebastian Berhalter in the midfield.
Imagine if Greg Berhalter was in there.
That'd be a hell of a game. But yeah, we had Sebastian in there, and as good of a midfielder as Sebastian Berhalter is, you can see the difference between when he's in versus when Cubas is in, because Cubas, he's so good, he's almost like having two players in the midfield. He can cover so much ground, he's such an effective tackler, just he's going to be a player who, in any game he plays in, you need to be able to shut down guys, and he's been doing that so well so far for the Whitecaps.
Would be electric to see Greg Berhalter, lace him up again with his old ass in there. But I was gonna say, Alex, I was gonna say, how is there, for Vancouver, how is your guys' in terms of set pieces? Because obviously we were talking about Galaxy. Set piece defending has not been good, especially specifically corner kicks, but we haven't been good at all. So I mean, like, if there is one weakest you guys can target on us, it's the set pieces. So I just wanted to ask, like, how good have you guys been on those corners? Have you guys scored a lot of goals on corners? And if you guys have, I think you guys will feed off of us in terms of corners.
Yeah, well, I have some good news for you guys. Our set piece attack under Vanni Sartini, his whole tenure really has been one of our weakest points. So I think it could change soon. I think we've started to realize that it's a problem and we're going to start changing some routines. But at the moment, set pieces are not something that I would view as a particularly big threat the Whitecaps can bring into a game. We're more of an open play team. I don't necessarily view set pieces as a dangerous part of our play. So you guys shouldn't be too worried about that.
Well, all right, so here's one thing I view as a major problem. So, like, you guys usually get off to really fast starts. Like, I remember last season you guys would score in the first minute a lot. And, like, even last season when you guys played the Galaxy in Vancouver, I think you guys scored, like, a minute and 30 seconds in. That was the bond. Yeah. What me and Eric would call the FIFA goalkeeper save, where he just dove like a FIFA goalkeeper and the ball went straight through his hands. It was pretty much like it was a meme. It was ridiculous. But that's something I'm definitely concerned about, the fast start. And something about the Galaxy, too, over the last year and even started this year. They give up goals at really bad times. Like against Kansas City when we played them, we won the game, but we gave up a goal right at halftime. Or against LAFC, we gave up a goal 4 minutes into the game. So that's a massive problem. And against Vancouver last year, they scored on us in the first minute, and they scored on us in stoppage time to kick us out of Leagues Cup. And then Ryan Gauld, too. I mean, we talk about Ricky Pooch being a good number 10, which he is, but Ryan Gauld is also in that elite class of center attacking midfielders. And you can ask Eric about Scottish players and what they do to his teams, like Johnny Russell, his favorite Scottish player right there. So, I mean, Scottish players just love the Galaxy in general. And Ryan Gauld has been one of those guys that's been really good versus the Galaxy. So he's going to be a big threat. We talked about Kubas needing to mark Ricky Pooch. Well, I think Brugman needs to equally do just as good of a job on Ryan Gauld, because if you give him, space to work his magic, he can really do a lot of damage.
Yeah, and another thing with Gauld is last year he got off to a bit of a slow start in terms of scoring. He was playing well, but he wasn't putting the ball in the back of the net. This year he's putting the ball in the back of the net early. He was in incredible form last year. I think he actually should have been an MVP candidate, even if that didn't end up being the case. This year, I think if more people pay attention to what the Whitecaps are doing, he's going to be an MVP candidate. He is just electric to watch in everything he does.
Definitely, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was going to say for Vancouver, like, obviously right now on the field, you guys are playing great. You guys are doing well. I just wanted to know, just because I obviously have never been to Vancouver or anything like that. I've heard good things about Vancouver, but, like, obviously how is, like, the culture in Vancouver? How are the games like? And just, like, what is the vibes there over there in Vancouver? I always like to learn, things about, like, other teams and, like, just their, I guess, supporter culture in a sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. Vancouver's a city with a very good soccer culture, but it's, for years, I think, been more based around what's going on in Europe. But this year in particular, the Whitecaps' attendance has been fantastic. I think a big part of that is because we have Miami coming to visit us later this year, so a lot of people bought season tickets, or they sold ticket packages where you could get tickets to the Miami game in addition to others. But it's been loud in BC Place every time I've been there this year, which isn't always the case. It's notorious that if you have a game on a Tuesday night in BC Place, you might get like 6,000 people showing up to a 26,000 seat lower bowl. But we've had multiple games sold out so far. The Portland game in particular was possibly the best atmosphere I've ever heard in that stadium, playoffs and Canadian Championship finals included. So I think there's some buzz starting to generate around the Whitecaps in this city now, which is really great to see. Like, historically, the Whitecaps have probably been the third or fourth even most supported sporting franchise in Vancouver. The Canucks will obviously always remain number one, but I think the Whitecaps are starting to get into a position where they can become Vancouver's second favorite sporting franchise, which great to see the growth.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's good to hear. And in fact, even like sort of similar for us. Like obviously, the LA Galaxy, we've had like good amount of supporters, but obviously in recent years hasn't really been there in the stadium. But like with the few games that we've had this year, it's like we've also sold out too. We've also like seen a resurgence of people coming back into the stadium. So it's like for us, it's like it's good to see like the atmospheres, growing. And I think it's good to have those good atmospheres as well. Whether it's like no matter for what team, because it's just good for the league, good for the sport and everything else. And like it is good to see that you guys are having having the support, playing good as well. And yeah, I mean, which also makes it a big test for us because I feel like the Galaxy always kind of have their struggles playing against Vancouver, and I think the last two again, like LA Galaxy Central mentioned, it was like you knocked us out in the Leagues Cup, and then you guys destroyed us when we went to BC play. So it's like, yeah, like I mean, recently we haven't played that great against you guys, so it is another good test for both teams, but like definitely for sure, it is good to see, and I hope it's an electric atmosphere.
Oh, totally.
This Saturday as well. Like I said, I've never been to Vancouver, but hopefully one day, I can go over there to watch a game. But yeah, I mean, it should look good. It should be good, and yeah, I mean, hopefully it's just a good game overall. Going into Saturday.
Yeah, really hoping for it. I personally haven't really spent much time in LA. How is the vibe in the stadium for you guys normally?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, it just depends. But like, of course, like our last game we had rain, and like I was thinking like, oh yeah, this is not going to sell out. It's probably going to be like we're probably not going to get that many people in. But it was like 22,000 people in the game for a rainy game, and obviously we don't for Californians it's like. For Californians, rain isn't a good thing for us. Like, a lot of people hate the rain here, but like, a lot of people showed up for a rain game. So like, I mean, at least for that, like, we're seeing some good attendances even with like, some weather conditions and stuff like that.
Great to see that. I love seeing the Galaxy do well. Like, they're probably the most historic franchise our league has. So it's really great to see. Obviously, I think LAFC has kind of taken the spotlight in LA a lot, but I really like seeing Galaxy succeed.
Definitely. Yeah. So do we.
Yeah, I was gonna say so do we, but yeah. Hopefully it keeps going good for us as well too. I will say, of course, you got any like other final points going into this game? Any other final things you want to say going into this game?
Yeah, just gonna mention a player to watch. I don't know where other fan bases are of the performances of Fafa Pico since arriving in Vancouver. He's been just such a surprise for me with how good he's been. I knew he was good when we signed him, but he's become a main piece in our attack, and he's just doing everything. I think he might still be best suited long-term in a role where he's coming off the bench where you can use him against tired legs, but just given the profile of our attacking players, he's been forced into a starting position, and he has really made the most of everything he's been doing. So I'm really looking forward to watching how he continues to progress over the course of the season.
All right, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add something too. Like, I'll say this about the game. It feels like a game that's really so wide open for either team because I feel like there's a world in which Vancouver, like they got some good results in a row at home, but they're kind of due for a let-off. Doesn't it kind of feel like that? Like they're kind of due for a bad performance at home or just like kind of a stinker game in general. But like for the Galaxy too, like I can see a world in which they take advantage with their wingers. Obviously, we spent a lot of money on wingers. Vancouver, like you mentioned, their fullbacks aren't very strong. So if the Galaxy really use the wingers like they did against San Jose and like they did against St. Louis, if they can defend a little bit better too, like I feel like a win is definitely achievable, or at least a result, which a result on the road in MLS is definitely a positive. But I also see a world in which Vancouver wins the game. Like it's been kind of like the last two games where they had this formation. It's worked really well against us. Again, like we talked about when you weren't on here against LAFC, we kind of have this isolated offense where, we play it through the middle, we get it out wide, and then it's like, okay, what do we do now? And then we just look kind of clueless. So, I mean, if that happens again, that could be a big problem. But, and I can see a world in which Ryan Gauld has another really good game, but I can also see it's really wide open, right? Like, I really feel like it's a proper 1-2 matchup to start the year, and it could really go either way for either side. And I feel like it's kind of a 50-50. Maybe the edge goes to Vancouver as the being favorites because they're at home, but I think both teams have a certain advantage that can make them really good in this match, and we've got to see who executes it better. That's what's going to determine the winner or who gets a result out of the game.
Yeah, like you said, we do have a tendency to kind of have a letdown game after a good streak, so I wonder if this could be the one where that happens. But again, this is when you have the 1 and the 2 playing each other, you're always due for a good game. So I'm hoping we get... I could see the result going either way. I'm just hoping we get a really good 90 minutes out of it.
Definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Hopefully it is a good game because, like, obviously, like, our last week game, it was close, I guess you could say, but it really wasn't a good game whatsoever. So hopefully it's a close game. Hopefully it's an electric game. I know quite a few Galaxy fans going up to Vancouver, so I don't know what's going to be the amount of supporters going up there, but, at least there will be some Galaxy fans up there, so hopefully, there is a little bit of an electric atmosphere there, and yeah, hopefully we just get a good game because obviously, as much as I want, I guess, the Galaxy to win, like I just, as a neutral perspective, I always like just to see good games, like I just want to see a good performance from both teams at the end of the day.
Yeah, same thing for me, but I obviously want to see the Whitecaps win, but I think we're due for a really good 90 minutes of soccer, so I'm just really excited for Saturday.
Yeah,
definitely,
hopefully.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully so. Any other final points any of you guys want to say before we close it out, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'll add one more. Like, I think the winger matchup is a really big deal for the Galaxy. Like, that's something I'm kind of going to beat the drum on a lot. Like, I think we really need to find our wingers a lot with Vancouver's fullbacks. Like, we talked about it, like, in a lot of games. Like, Joseph Pansel really needs to be good this game. If Joseph Pansel is being marked by Ryan Raposo, if I'm Joseph Pansel and I scored, like, 20 goals in Belgium last season and I'm being marked by Ryan Raposo, I'm like, respectfully, like, I'm not going to allow this guy to get the better of me. Like, I need to, put in a good shift. I need to bounce back from LAFC, and I need to get my team a victory because, he played well versus San Jose. But other than that, against St. Louis, he was decent too. But we kind of need to see the Joseph Pansel we saw in those games because against Seattle and LAFC, he wasn't exactly all there. So I think this could be a really good opportunity if we manage to find him in those spaces and he makes those right runs. Obviously, Peck, another player, we've seen some positives when he starts. I think he needs to take advantage of whoever Vancouver has at right back. I don't know who that's going to be, but whoever that is, I think we need to take advantage of that. And Ricky Puig, like Greg Vanney too, he needs to get him more involved. And if the offense can be clicking, we see what this team can do. They've scored 3 goals multiple games. Vancouver, is a really well-organized, put-together team, but can be a team that can let in goals. Sometimes they can let in goals at home. So I think an opportunity is there to get a bounce-back result for us. It's going to be a difficult game. But still, I think, if we take advantage of our matchups and just defend corner kicks better, we stay more focused, we have more communication in that back line, it could be a good result for the Galaxy too. I want to see us win. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very back and forth game. We'll see who comes out on top of it.
Can I plug my site quickly?
Of course,
go ahead, man. Like, obviously, tell us what you're doing, man.
Yeah, so me and a couple of my buddies are running Canucks Chronicles right now for any NHL fans in your audience, where we're writing about the Vancouver Canucks. You can find us at Nucks Chronicles on Instagram or on the app formerly known as Twitter. And you can check out our podcast, The Chroncast, wherever you check out podcasts.
Of course.
All right, there you go, guys. So whoever's interested, go follow, go, subscribe, do what you need to do. But yeah, man, obviously we can't thank you enough for joining us here today to talk about, this matchup. And yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, hopefully it's a good game. Hopefully, both teams, do well in this one. But at the end of the day, someone's got to win, or I guess tie as well. But yeah, we'll just see what happens this Saturday.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, man, no problem.
Anytime.
Thanks for coming. But in terms of us though, even then, we're going to close out this episode as well. So can't thank you guys enough for joining and listening. If you all want to follow me, go follow me at Insider Galaxy on Instagram, on X. Go follow LA Galaxy Central on Instagram. And of course, can't thank you guys enough for listening. Of course, LA Galaxy Central, you got anything to say to the listeners before we go?
No, hopefully we see a great game and hopefully we bounce back.
Yeah, hopefully we get to see that for the Galaxy. But yeah, can't thank you guys enough. Be a friend, tell a friend about the podcast, whenever you're listening to this podcast. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, rest of your night. And thank you guys. G's up.
7 words.